Dustin, it's good to have you here. So, I mean, just to start, can you talk about your business, Union Productions, how long it's been around, how many employees you have, and what do you guys do here in Connecticut?
Totally. Yeah. So Union, we call ourselves, we say we are the secret weapon for clarity and connection in marketing. And we do that through our main muscle, which is video production. That's the strategy of, that's the production of, that's the placement, the tracking of the metrics. And we do that for a lot of really interesting, mainly B2B companies, insurance brands, healthcare companies, and in a lot that again need clarity in their messaging because they have complex offerings, complex services, and ones that need, like everybody, connection to humanize their brand, to create that brand loyalty, from whether it's a purchaser within another company for a B2B brand, or the consumer, for a B2C type company. So Union turns 10 in March. So time stamping March then
Happy
2021.
early birthday.
Thank you. Yes, I think entering, what would you be, 10? Entering middle school? I guess the Union's starting to get some zits and maybe start to like girls soon. I'm not sure exactly, right? When he turns
I don't
10.
know. Yeah, I don't know what you were like when you were 10, but sure.
So turns 10 in March, and we have a bit of a unique structure. There's three in-house full-time staff members, and within our industry, within video production, we're supported a lot by freelance specialists. And so our approach is never to, as individuals, kind of be jacks of all trades and masters of none, kind of bringing what might be mediocre content to the table, but bring in the individuals that it really takes to achieve the specific roles that are needed to create top quality content. And so we have an awesome pool of probably 24 freelancers that work for us on a relatively part-time basis, kind of plug and play, depending on what's needed.
Okay, so what do your full-time employees do, and you?
Mhm.
Is it the actual shooting of the footage? Is it the editing process, or is it more of the working with the clients, understanding what the vision is, and then from there you can pull, your freelancers and say this person would be great to get this message out, or they'd be great for this sort of creative component of the
Yeah.
project?
Yeah, in-house, what we manage a lot of is the strategy, the creative development, and all of our editing and animation is done in-house as well. So when it comes to production, and when someone thinks about video production, what you don't want is somebody who's just a hammer and thinks that everything's a nail, right? And so your brand needs to be given its unique look. It needs to have a feel that fits to it. And so we bring in and assemble our team accordingly, and make sure that it's going to achieve what the look and the feel that needs to align with the creative that we've developed.
Okay, that's awesome. So you get to work with a bunch of different people, which is I'm sure is really fun for you.
It's a
Um,
blast, yeah.
so so we were talking about this before we started officially recording, but how has your work changed over the past, oh gosh, I mean, we're like 9, 10 months into the pandemic. That is so crazy to say. Um,
Yeah.
and as we all know, social media has gotten bigger, video has gotten bigger, just as a way to communicate, for companies to communicate, and um, other people to communicate. Just as an anecdote, a lot of guests I've had on this podcast, CEOs of companies, they started recording videos and sending them to their employees because they couldn't have that big staff meeting, to talk about, what was going on in the company. And the easiest way to do it is just record a video, say it, and send it out. So video has been such a big component of marketing, communications, always has and is getting bigger, but especially this year. So that was sort of a roundabout way of asking you, how has your work changed, and what is going to continue to change after this pandemic obviously resolves?
Yeah, no, 100%. So, yeah, 15 years ago when this pandemic started, we were producing a lot of obviously live action filmed in-person content. So that was probably the first thing that changed immediately, is that we went from probably a 50-50 split of animation and live action content to um, to maybe 75% animation and 25% using content libraries that we had already built up for some of our longstanding clients, as well as mixing in stock content that can be purchased in some of the libraries that we have licenses to. Once June came around and we were able to be on set, we began to operate, with smaller teams on set, and we began to apply a lot of pretty strict methods. We had a large production going on in San Francisco in the Bay Area, where we had a staff nurse for the entire production who was taking temperatures for people every morning going onto set. Of course, we have hand sanitizers, extra masks available, wipes for sections where people work to make sure that they're clean, and we leave things better than we found them. And so it's been we've begun to kind of run lean and mean, and it's not in that sense different than anything we've ever done. I think maybe in our industry, or there's a lot of industries that have side waste that aren't, that are exist because this is the way we've always done things. That mentality of we do this because that's what we've always done. I think me, or really any entrepreneur, comes in and tries to challenge some of those methods, or challenge the thinking, at least in conversation, to develop and to innovate and to grow. And so I think the production that, say, a CEO is doing a Zoom recording like this, and sends off to staff members, is amazing. The bar in terms of what the look and quality needs to be is set relatively low, because I think maybe for the first time, employees are beginning to see their leadership in a different, maybe even more personalized light than what was done previously. The person who's behind the podium in front of a room of 100 or 200 people is now talking to a staff member in their living room, from their living room. And I think, and hopefully there's been a lot of even conversations that have come up in that way, just around emotion and mental health, and those things that we've had conversations internally with our staff about too. How we're all holding up, and recognizing that individuals who are working from home have new challenges. It's not business as usual, and the expectations need to be adjusted as well. It's not a time where we see things as business first and home life second. We're being introduced and forced to see the kind of intersection of the two, and our priorities kind of rise to the top. So a lot there, right?
Yeah. I was trying to think of what to ask next. No, I completely agree. It's almost humanized everyone. And there's just a greater level of, I don't know if respect is the right word, but just recognition that you really are not, one person when you show up at work and a different person when you go home. It's really just, but I think that's been to the benefit of company culture. Your company sounds like it's very, entrepreneurial, a little, not startup at this point, but a little bit more flexible. So just continuing to bring that energy to companies that have been around for, 150 years, who, business as usual, that's the way we've always done it. And then they had to completely rework. So really, a lot of people have had to bring that innovative entrepreneurial spirit into the workplace almost for the first time. And I'm sure companies and clients that you've worked with, I'm sure you've had many, many conversations with them about How do we message differently? How do we talk to the customer? What is the customer thinking right now? What is the experience? I mean, we've all seen that on TV recently. So
Yeah.
just being able to communicate that through video, right?
Yeah, and I would say a lot of what we're seeing and a lot of what we're helping brands and companies share is even processes. How does the customer interact with them differently now to set expectations? Because we're all under a lot of different pressures. We all don't, as individuals, we don't know what that other person, on the other side of our, business interaction, or customer to company interaction is going through, what their day was the day before, especially right now. And so for a lot of our clients, we're helping them communicate to their customers what they should expect in an interaction. So for example, I'll give I guess a shout out to one of our clients, Jefferson Radiology. I'm thinking of off the top of my head because we're working with them this week on putting together, what does it look like when you show up for your appointment now? And how do we set expectations so you know what you're walking into, as opposed to learning on the go? And to me, that's just helping communicate, number one, that you care about the customer, what their experience is, you respect their schedule enough to let them know, hey, this might be a little bit longer in these different areas than you might expect your experience to be typically. And so that's probably a great example of some of the most recent messaging, as policies and practices within companies are changing and customers need to know about that.
So next question I had, just because I want our listeners to be able to take away something,
Yeah.
and just because you have, all these years of experience in communicating and especially creating visuals for clients of yours. So say a small business or even like a mid-sized business is listening, and they are trying to communicate a little differently to their customers, or maybe marketing a new product. And especially in this environment, and I think this is going to continue for, the next year, maybe way into the future. This is just the new way we communicate now through video. So what would be some tips or just ideas to think about for businesses that are looking for different ways to communicate and find those customers or future clients, or just their audience? Do you have
Yeah,
anything kind of off the top of your head?
for sure. I would say start with the customer yourself to begin with. I think as business owners, as marketers, as people who are, really selling a service or product, it's amazing how often we skip asking questions of our clients to get an understanding of what within our service they appreciated, what made them choose us, what caught their attention, how they like the product, what elements stand out to them. So get those kind of talking points given to you, as opposed to kind of force feeding what you think is great about you. Once you have those ideas, say for video, this is what we run into a lot with, say, a small or mid-sized business, is that they try to create a singular video that does everything for them, and include every element of messaging within this one piece. And it ends up just being a muddy mess, and that is not the approach. And especially today, it's not the approach. You want to narrow down your talking points. You want to narrow down your messaging to a high level, who you are, what you bring to the table for a customer, and share that in a clear way. That also leaves, I would say, some question marks in that draws someone in to learn more. Share the problem you solve, how you do it at a baseline, but allow people the space to say, wow, that's going to solve my problem, and it sounds like it's the right fit for me. Click through to the website, because that's really the interaction for the most part that you're going to have in the digital space, right? And then for some of your finer points, some of your more specific offerings, create videos for those individually that highlight specific elements of your service, that highlight different products. Do one for each of your products. That's short, 15, 30, 45 seconds. And now, instead of spending all of this time creating a singular piece of content that you push and people are now say tired of after a couple weeks, you can only share something so many times. You're creating your own library of content to drip out over time, whether that's via your social channels, whether that's via your email. Even if you're doing, YouTube pre-rolls or programmatic buys, or, you're kind of the person listening right now is advanced enough to be placing things on broadcast or OTT, then you can be switching out those spots and even A/B testing against each other to understand what's performing well. So I would say that kind of boiling that down is, don't try and include all of your messaging into one singular piece of content. Instead, spread out your messaging across smaller pieces of content. And like the classic, really within video too, like the classic sales funnel that has, kind of this developing interest and intrigue and leading the customer down the journey, you can do that with pieces of video content along the whole way. That, you have content that is more in-depth, explaining your service in detail, that should only be living most likely on your website, where someone is already interested, they know why they want it, and you're just really putting kind of the seal on that sale. Or, something that's maybe more of a customer testimonial, having their problem solved, is probably higher up in the funnel. Keep it short and hook people in and bring them back to those main pieces of content or your website.
Yeah, those are really great tips. And just, you and I have been talking for a little bit before we recorded this podcast about those things. Sometimes they can seem really overwhelming, but if you have a plan and if you think it through, you can really drip these things out. It can be successful, and it can in turn be a, total return on investment. It can lead to new customers. It can grow different products or services or whatever your business is. So it really is just the name of the game now.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And whoever you're working with to develop content should be thinking in a way of taking larger units of content and breaking them down into smaller pieces as well. So, we could use like a really quick example even of this podcast, which translates, obviously in video, and it's going to end up, on iTunes or the Apple Podcasts as well. And, we can take what I just shared, that quick tip about how to think about creating content, whatever it was, 1 minute, maybe with how I talk, it was 10 minutes, but take that one chunk and use that as a clip on LinkedIn. And you could probably find 10, 30-second sound bites within this interview alone that can be used once a week as a LinkedIn post, right there across 10 different weeks, and you're covered with fresh content you're always outputting.
Great. Now I have the expectation to make a couple videos out of this one conversation. So thank you for that. No,
it's all just me everywhere.
Yes. No, it is all good. Those are all really awesome tips. So last question I had for you to wrap up, a little bit of a personal question, but so you have had this company for 10 years. You seem like a pretty young guy. We seem about the same age or pretty close to it. And I also saw that you've lived in different places other than Connecticut. Mm-hmm. Are you from Connecticut, like born and raised? Yes. Or okay, but you've moved around to different states or cities, correct?
Yeah. Within Connecticut, I've lived a few different places, but also I spent about 3 years living in California.
Okay, interesting. So as a young person, born and raised in Connecticut, went to California, I'm sure has traveled. What is keeping you here in Connecticut? Why do you love having your company here? Why do you love working here?
Yeah. Well, I would say the easy answer that most people probably give when you kind of first layer to this onion is family, of course, right? My family lives here. My wife's family lives here. So that's kind of right, the first baseline for why the geography chose us in that case. I also think people love knocking Connecticut for business in the way that people just like to pick on other people sometimes, in a high school kind of way, right? And there's been challenges that occur, right? But in terms of having a business here, in terms of being able to do work for companies that exist here, but also within the region, within New England, within New York, but to be based in Connecticut is a really strategic place. For us, we do a lot of work with insurance companies, insurance brands. So obviously that's a great fit here. Healthcare as well, higher education as well. This area is rich with those different resources. And I think people also who are entrepreneurs who are in this area love to see things grow and overcome. And in an area where someone says you can't, that just feels like it's asking to be that thought to be torn down, and for something to take the place where someone says, you could never do a company like this here, or it doesn't make sense to do that there. And so a lot of it is just the mentality. We aren't in an area that is a desert for opportunity and work. There are definitely areas of the US that are like that you can't do everything there. I think in Connecticut, you could basically do anything here because of what's available within 2 hours of this location. So I think one of the things that again becomes kind of the exciting challenge for Connecticut is finding and holding on to talent, because people born and raised here again have a mindset or a mentality of kind of getting out, right? And I think that's everywhere. I think that's just a youthful thing of trying to do something different or be somewhere else, right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I had those thoughts too, but I ended up staying here, but it really worked out. And there are so many opportunities here. I mean, you and I have probably two totally different careers. But I've just been so, just so blessed to have so many different opportunities and be exposed to so many different things just in this small state. And it's pretty incredible. And it's, some people find greener pastures elsewhere. They go to the West Coast like you did. It's really cool out there, I gotta say. But there are some really incredible things happening in Connecticut, particularly in the, the innovation space, the startup space, the entrepreneurial space. There's a ton of hubs popping up all over the state and groups. And I'm sure you're a part of those, or add your voice to those. So that it really is rich. Whatever you're looking for in Connecticut, unless it's like a beautiful California beach, but we do have beaches here. We have everything here. So unless you're looking for something specific like that, I agree with you. You can pretty much do anything here.
Yeah, we also, I think, against the backdrop of maybe other places that I've traveled, we have a lot of diversity in Connecticut. We have a lot of different trains of thought. And ironically, if there's one thing that I would love to see changed, it would almost be this. I would love to see Connecticut work smarter, not harder. And as a mentality, I think I'll share a quick story. We're doing some renovations on our house and recently had the appraiser come by and had to look at some different things. And so when he found out that I was a business owner, he shared that he also owned this appraisal company. And he kind of gave me this look and said, well, how many hours a week do you work? And with this like twinkle in his eye. And I said, well, probably 30 or 35. And he goes, oh, I thought you were going to say 100 hours like I do. And, this kind of shared, grind yourself into the ground, it's not 9 to 5, it's 8 to 6, Monday through Saturday. And you have to have like hustle means constant, like drive yourself into the ground. And it's just not, that's not the goal at all. And so, I was listening to a speaker recently who they do executive coaching, and they talk with how to free up executives' time. And what you'd expect people to say and what you would expect them to bring to the table is ways to automate, in ways to delegate, in ways to get more done in the time that you have. And that's an element of it. But actually, the first step that they always look to do is get that executive, that C-suite person, Friday off. That's the first step every time. Because as a leader, as an entrepreneur, and especially as a creative, you tend to not work well in a vacuum. And I don't think anyone works well in a vacuum of a rush to create, but it's taking that time to go on a walk. It's taking that time to step away and have a coffee in the middle of the day during a time that's not a break period, to just think and just allow yourself to be creative. We're so hyped on having processes and workflows and that type of thing that we don't leave space for our brains to get bored and imagine and create and innovate and change. And so I think we can slow down in Connecticut a little bit in a very unique way. And it's just a difference I felt when I came back here.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm sure that topic alone could be a podcast in of itself. So I'm going to write that down because it's very true, especially working from home. I'm sure you felt like this at some point where it's just, I have no distractions at the office and I can get so much more done. And it got to the point, even for me, it was just task, and not really allowing yourself to have that time. Yes, to imagine, to brainstorm. Some of my best ideas happen when I'm cooking or when I'm out walking the dog. And it's like, oh, we should do that for this project. And it's so much more organic. And it's just, combining work and life. It's not even balance. It's just, how do those two things fit into your life together? And that makes for a healthier and happier employee and company, I would guess.
No, 1,000,000%. So yes, you're right. That could probably be 4 podcasts.
Yeah, I know. Really. Okay. Well, we'll schedule those. All right. Well, Dustin, thank you so much for talking with me. That conversation went in a million different directions, but I loved it. Love talking to you. You're doing awesome stuff in Connecticut, as a young person too, who, born and raised, left and came back to start his business. So, thank you so much. And, hope to have you back soon.
Yeah. Thanks, Shannon. Talk soon.